Lewis, I've been reading about El Chapo's tunnel escape and something just doesn't add up. How does anyone dig a mile-long tunnel under a maximum security prison without getting caught?
Max, that's exactly the right question to start with. Picture this first. Deep underground, 30 feet below a Mexican prison yard, there are men frozen in place. They're holding pickaxes and shovels, completely still.
Why frozen?
Because above them, right at that moment, a prison patrol vehicle is passing by. They can feel the vibrations through the rock. One wrong noise, one scrape of metal, and months of work goes down the drain.
So they're that close to being discovered?
They're close to something even more important. They're almost at their goal. The cell of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Mexico's most famous drug kingpin. These men have been tunneling through solid rock for months, with nothing but pickaxes and shovels.
Wait, just pickaxes and shovels? Why not use modern equipment?
Think about it. What would modern equipment do?
Make noise. A lot of noise.
Exactly. Jackhammers, boring machines, all that stuff would make the work go much faster, sure, but it would create noise that might give them away. And here's another problem. It would draw massive attention to their staging area.
Their staging area?
About a mile from the prison perimeter. Before they even started digging, El Chapo's powerful drug cartel purchased a small plot of land, as close to the prison as they could legally get.
And they just started digging?
Not quite that simple. They needed cover. So they began constructing 2 small homes on the property. Made it look like a normal construction project.
But they never finished the homes?
Never even got past a rough brick outer shell, because they were never meant to be inhabited. The homes were just the cover they needed to start construction on the real project, the tunnel that would set El Chapo free.
Okay, but that seems risky. If they're taking months to dig this tunnel, wouldn't authorities eventually catch on?
That's the nightmare scenario the tunnel crew was facing. Incredible pressure to finish as quickly as possible. See, El Chapo had a long history of escaping from prison and evading police raids.
So Mexican authorities knew he might try something?
More than that, they could transfer him at any time, move him to another prison specifically to foil any escape attempts. Every single day the tunnelers took to reach their boss was another day the entire operation could become worthless.
And they'd have to start all over again, at a different location.
Exactly. But here's what makes it worse. The unfinished buildings were starting to draw attention. Local officials noticed. Curious villagers started asking questions.
What kind of questions?
Why would someone start construction on an empty piece of land and then suddenly stop with only a shell of a home built? It doesn't make sense, right? Time was running out. Pressure was mounting from every direction.
What was El Chapo doing during all this? He must have known something was happening.
Inside his cell, El Chapo was playing a completely different game. He was the model prisoner.
The model prisoner? This is a guy with a history of ordering horrific violence.
Some of the most horrific violence Mexico has ever seen. But inside those walls, he maintained a cordial and even pleasant attitude with his prison guards and fellow inmates. Completely friendly.
And nobody suspected anything?
His conversations over the phone were carefully monitored. His mail was checked by prison officials. But not a single hint of the ongoing plot was ever revealed.
That takes discipline.
El Chapo was a true professional by now. Patient. But even his patience was running out.
How long did the tunnel actually take?
This is where it gets impressive. The tunnel diggers faced a daunting task from the start. They knew they had to move fast. Despite the incredible pressure on them, they managed to reach El Chapo before any potential prison transfer.
How long?
They broke through to El Chapo's cell just 16 months into his prison stay.
16 months? Is that fast?
Officials who examined the tunnel later remarked that a tunnel of that magnitude should have taken 18 months to 2 years to construct. So yes, incredibly fast given their limitations.
What made it so sophisticated?
Let me paint the picture. The walls were reinforced where needed with wooden paneling. They had a generator pumping fresh air through a mile-long ventilation system to keep the tunnel oxygenated.
A mile-long ventilation system?
Think about it. Without fresh air, anyone in that tunnel would suffocate. On the ground, the tunnelers had laid down rails. They used a motorcycle to shuttle 2 carts back and forth along the shaft.
What were the carts for?
Filled with dirt, Months and months of excavated rock and dirt going back and forth. But here's the clever part. Once El Chapo was reached, he would ride on that same motorcycle and quickly shuttle the mile distance to freedom.
But wait, you said months of dirt. Where did all that dirt go?
Good question. That's exactly the problem they had to solve. All that dirt had to go somewhere. So the tunnelers cleverly transferred it to the tunnel opening where others would spread the dirt around the field on the outside.
Why not just dump it in piles?
Because giant piles of fresh dirt would draw attention immediately. But even spreading it around had problems.
What problems?
The presence of fresh dirt littering acres of empty fields was sure to eventually draw attention. Questions that would not be easy to answer for the fake construction crew above ground. The clock was ticking on multiple fronts.
So what happened? When did they actually break through?
Suddenly, in the middle of the night on July 12, 2015, the sound of metal scraping came from El Chapo's shower inside his cell.
His shower?
Moments later, the ceramic bottom of the shower popped free. A friendly face greeted the imprisoned drug lord from below, beckoning him into the darkness.
And he just went?
Wasting no time, El Chapo ducked into the secret tunnel, climbing down 30 feet into a tunnel only as wide across as a man. But here's an interesting detail.
What's that?
The tunnel was just tall enough for El Chapo to stand upright. He was often derided for his short stature by his enemies, right? So the tunnel diggers made sure the tunnel was just tall enough so the boss wouldn't have to hunch as he walked along it.
That's actually kind of classy.
A classy prison escape if we ever heard of one. Now, a few feet into the mouth of the tunnel, El Chapo boarded a small motorcycle which had been affixed to metal tracks.
The same one they used for the dirt carts?
Exactly. But the carts full of dirt were gone now. Just moments after leaving his cell, El Chapo was cruising along the well-lit tunnel like a kid on an amusement park ride.
How long did it take?
2 minutes later, El Chapo ended his joyride by climbing up wooden steps and popping up into the empty shell of a home his crew had been secretly working from for a year and a half.
And then what?
Changed into clean clothes, climbed into a truck, and was whisked away into the dark of the night. Left behind an incredible mile-long secret tunnel and a completely frustrated prison system and Mexican government both.
So he got away. That's it?
Not quite. El Chapo would be caught again just months after his escape.
Months? How?
His newest safe house was given away weeks before his arrival by careless gunmen who were spotted by locals.
What happened?
Responding to reports of heavily armed men, Mexican officials put the house under surveillance. They intercepted communications saying that grandma or aunt was coming to visit.
Code words?
Realizing this had to be a high-value target, officials waited for their chance to strike. 1 month later, Mexican Special Forces soldiers raided the home and killed several bodyguards.
Did they get him?
El Chapo and one of his most senior lieutenants escaped via, you guessed it, a secret tunnel.
Another tunnel?
Popping up a mile from the home, the two stole a vehicle at gunpoint, but the driver immediately reported it to the police.
So they were caught quickly.
After issuing an alert for the stolen vehicle, federal police officers discovered the stolen car and placed the two fugitives under arrest. But El Chapo wouldn't go without at least trying to buy his freedom.
Bribe them?
Knowing how easily corruptible public officials had been in the past, El Chapo bribed the police officers, offered them money, homes, and even lucrative jobs if they let him go.
Did it work?
Little did the desperate kingpin know that he was dealing with a new brand of Mexican police officer, one not as easily corrupted as his predecessors.
They refused?
All 4 officers refused El Chapo, after which his offers of honey turned into vinegar. He told the police officers that they were both going to die.
That's a serious threat coming from him.
The 4 officers sent pictures of El Chapo to their superiors, only to be warned that the police had received a tip-off that 40 heavily armed assassins were en route to free El Chapo. Friendly forces still tied up at the compound, the officers were ordered to a nearby motel on the outskirts of town. They holed themselves up in an empty room and prepared for a possible shootout for their lives.
What was El Chapo doing?
All the while, El Chapo laughed, echoing his previous threats. Suddenly, a convoy of vehicles lit up the road outside, clearly headed for the lonely motel.
The assassins?
The officers, armed with M16 assault rifles and pistols, prepared for what was surely their last stand. El Chapo taunted them, told them they were about to face death, and after them, their families.
That's terrifying.
Yet the officers held their ground, ready to die for duty's sake if need be. As the vehicles began to turn into the parking lot, El Chapo's taunts died in his throat.
Why? What happened?
Once the glare of the headlights faded, the barricaded officers could see military trucks full of Mexican Marines rushing to take up defensive positions around the motel.
Not the assassins, then.
Minutes later, a thoroughly defeated and dejected-looking El Chapo was dragged into an SUV and rushed off to an airfield.
So that was the end?
El Chapo would not escape from Mexican prison again. 2 years later, any hope of ever escaping again would be extinguished, as Mexico approved an extradition request to the United States.
The U.S.? That changes everything.
Safely in U.S. custody, El Chapo faces life in prison. Though he may have been one of the deadliest men in Mexico's history, the drug kingpin would ultimately be remembered as nothing more than a sobbing mess as he begged U.S. justice officials for leniency.
And they didn't grant it?
They would not grant it. The man who built tunnels under prisons, who ordered horrific violence, who corrupted officials and threatened families, ended up powerless. That's how the story ends.